I just watched a Lambda function take 14 seconds to cold start, and the developer had no idea their VPC configuration was the culprit. If your Lambda functions are in a VPC, you might be sitting on a performance time bomb right now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Network Ninja Cloudcast. I'm so glad to be here because VPC and Lambda is something I've been struggling with.
Great to have you. Today we're diving into why putting Lambda in a VPC used to be terrifying, what AWS fixed, and the any strategies that still matter in 2024.
Okay, so I added my Lambda to a VPC because it needed to talk to my RDS database in a private subnet. Suddenly my function went from 200 milliseconds to like 10 seconds on cold starts. What happened?
You hit the classic any attachment penalty. When Lambda runs in a VPC, it needs an elastic network interface to communicate with your VPC resources. Before September 2019, every cold start meant AWS had to create and attach a brand new any to your function, and that process took anywhere from 8 to 15 seconds.
Wait, so every time my function scaled up or hadn't been called in a while, users waited 10 plus seconds?
Exactly. Think of it like this. Imagine every time you needed to make a phone call, someone had to physically run a new phone line to your house first. That's what was happening. AWS had to provision network infrastructure on demand for each execution environment.
That analogy makes sense. But what changed in 2019?
AWS introduced what they call improved VPC networking for Lambda, built on their Hyperplane infrastructure. Instead of each Lambda execution environment getting its own dedicated any, AWS now creates shared Hyperplane any's at the subnet level when you deploy or update your function. These any's are managed by AWS and shared across execution environments, using NAT to route traffic from the Lambda service VPC to your customer VPC.
So the any creation happens at deploy time now, not at invocation time?
Precisely. When you deploy a Lambda function configured for VPC access, AWS provisions the Hyperplane any's in your specified subnets. Cold starts drop from 10 plus seconds down to typically under 1 second for the VPC networking portion. The remaining cold start time is your runtime initialization and your code.
That's a massive improvement. But you mentioned any management strategies still matter. Why?
3 reasons. First, IP address exhaustion. Each Hyperplane any still consumes IP addresses from your subnet. Here's something important to understand. AWS reserves 5 IP addresses in every subnet for the network address, VPC router, DNS server, future use, and broadcast address. So if you're running in a /28 subnet, you have 16 total addresses minus those 5 reserved, leaving only 11 usable IPs. You can hit limits fast.
What CIDR block should I actually use for Lambda subnets?
It depends on your workload. AWS recommends sizing based on your actual concurrency needs and the number of unique security group and subnet combinations you're using. The Hyperplane any sharing is quite efficient, so you don't need a simple 1-to-1 ratio of IPs to concurrent executions anymore. That said, for high concurrency functions, dedicated Lambda subnets with a /24 give you 251 usable addresses, which provides comfortable headroom. For smaller workloads, you might be fine with less. The key is monitoring your IP utilization and scaling up if you see exhaustion warnings.
Got it. What's the second reason any management matters?
Security group limits. Every Lambda function in a VPC needs security groups, and by default you're limited to 5 security groups per any. That's a soft limit you can increase through AWS support if needed, but it's worth knowing about. More importantly, your security group rules need to be configured correctly on both sides. Your Lambda function security group needs outbound rules allowing traffic to your database ports, and your RDS security group needs inbound rules allowing traffic from Lambda. I see people get confused about which security group needs which rule type, then wonder why Lambda times out.
Can you clarify that? Which security group gets which rules?
Sure, think of it as a two-way handshake. The Lambda security group needs an outbound rule saying I'm allowed to send traffic to port 3306 for MySQL or 5432 for Postgres. The RDS security group needs an inbound rule saying I'll accept traffic from the Lambda security group on that port. Both pieces need to be in place.
What about the third reason?
Subnet availability zone distribution. You should always configure Lambda with subnets in multiple availability zones. If you only specify one AWS and it has an outage, your function can't create new execution environments. Specify at least 2, preferably 3 subnets across different AWSs in your VPC configuration.
What's the biggest mistake you see people make with Lambda VPC integration?
Putting Lambda in a VPC when they don't need to. If your function only calls DynamoDB, S3, or external APIs, keep it out of the VPC entirely. You get faster cold starts and simpler networking. Only add VPC integration when you need to access resources that must be in a VPC, like RDS, Elasticache, or OpenSearch service in a private subnet.
Let me make sure I understand. Modern Lambda VPC integration uses shared hyperplane NEs created at deploy time, not invocation time. I need appropriately sized subnets based on my concurrency needs, proper security group rules on both Lambda and my database, and multi-AWS subnet configuration. And I should only use VPC integration when I actually need private resource access.
Perfect summary. One pro tip: use VPC endpoints for AWS services like Secrets Manager or S3 if your Lambda is in a VPC. Add a gateway endpoint for S3 or DynamoDB. Those are free. For other services, you'll use interface endpoints powered by Private Link. Keep in mind that interface endpoints have hourly charges and data processing fees, so do the math compared to NAT gateway costs for your specific traffic patterns. But either way, VPC endpoints keep traffic private and off the public internet.
This clears up so much confusion. I'm going to check my subnet sizes and security group configurations right after this.
That's it for today's episode. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
And share this with anyone running Lambda in a VPC. They probably need to hear this.
Thanks for watching the Network Ninja Cloudcast. See you in the next one.